Welcome to the You Go First podcast. This is the place where we bring together thought leaders, business pioneers, personal development gurus, and just about any person we discover that will inspire and compel you to go first in all areas of your life. Please welcome keynote speaker, philanthropist, and the official head dream chaser for Odyssey Teams, Inc., our host, Lain Hensley.
You go first.
You go first.
You go first.
No, you go first.
You go first.
You go first.
That's what it's all about here at You Go First podcast. So I will go first. I'm Lain Hensley, your host. And it's just a privilege to get to be here on another episode and installment of what we're trying to do here around, inspiring people to go first and get things done. So I've got a man who's doing that right here. I want to introduce my friend Jason Weinrich. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Lain.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm excited you're here. I've been following your story, and I'll tell our listeners a bit. So Jason has created a bucket list, which is not a new concept. The movie, The Bucket List, and people are always talking about, what's on your bucket list. So Jason has taken it into action. You created a bucket list. And how many items are on your bucket list?
30.
So he's got 30 items picked out. You're a videographer, you're in marketing and so forth. And so instead of just doing these things, how are you letting the world know about your list?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love video making. I love storytelling. And I'm going to be doing these things anyway, so why not take video of it and share that with the world? And if a couple people get inspired along the way, then that's a success in my book.
Yeah. How far into the bucket list are we right now?
So I've done 3 things. I'm working on 4, 5, and 6 right now.
So you created the list, you're videoing these things, and they're not just like a quick video. I mean, I've watched them. They're very in-depth. You rode a 100-mile bike ride and all the training and everything that went into the place. So for our listeners out there, today's conversation about bucket list is really about each of you, each of us, getting things done. Here we are at the beginning of a new year. It's very common for people to go, this year I hope I go to here, and I hope I go here, and I hope I go there. And so we create a life bucket list. So before we kick the bucket, what have we done? So you're a young guy. Once you're done with your 30, what happens next?
Well, hopefully I don't die.
Okay, exactly. So create what? Second list?
Yeah, second list. Keep it going. I mean, I'm doing these things in chapters. So 1 through 30, and then hopefully I'll start chapter 31 here in a couple of years when I finish the list. And kind of the whole premise that I've got for the bucket list is it's never a perfect time. Like, you've always just got to make it work, and to be action oriented. Whenever you're setting a goal, make sure that you're putting forth action to get it done. The second thing that I'm trying to do with the bucket list is share with people what is called this internal locus of control, to be able to develop within them this concept that I can change the world around me, and I can make things that I've always wanted to see happen. And so that's what I'm trying to do, and through the storytelling, through the video process.
Well, you're doing it. I mean, you go first. Our goal is that people go first in relationship. They go first to, like you say, create the time. I think a lot of people fall into sort of victim mode, like, I'm too busy to do it. I'm too busy to do it. And life is kind of collapsing in on them. And clearly the goal today is to go, okay, what's on your list? If you're a viewer or a listener out there, are you doing even step 1? And step 1 is to write things down. We know that the odds of you accomplishing your list, whatever that goal is, whether it's a goal for the day or a goal for the week or a goal for a year or a lifetime, as soon as you write it down, you increase your chances of it happening over 80%. So you would think, if I believe that, I would at least get up and write down 2 things I want to get done today or something this year. So congratulations that you wrote them down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to write something down is to take it from this, just a thought, just an idea, concept, and put it on paper or put it in your phone and say, this is something I'm actually going to do now. I think there's a huge process that happens there.
So let's help our listeners walk through a similar process. They're going to have a different list. But to everybody listening out there, I hope that you've written down at least one thing you want to accomplish this week, one thing you want to accomplish this year. And I say one because some people are like, oh, write down 30. Oh man, I write this list. Oh, it's too overwhelming. I got to go back to work, or I got to go pick up the kids, or go, and life just starts to happen. So you're taking a huge chunk saying, I'm going to do 30. A goal is really putting a timeline to your goal. And how long are you taking to accomplish your goal here? What's your goal?
Each one, I said in my opening video, it might take me 10 years because some of these things require financial resources that would be a strain on a young family. So some of them I could get done in a day, but some of these travel ones, I would probably wait a couple of years until I'm ready to make that expense.
Yeah. Well, I think when you said a second ago about, there's never a good time. My father-in-law's 90, in the hospital. He's had an amazing life. He's such a great example to me, great father-in-law. And it's like, we all, wherever we are in our life, there's going to be moments when I had cancer or whatever's going on in people's lives where they go, man, am I at peace? Have I done the things I set out to do? And, if we could give our listeners the formula you're using, hopefully they check out some of your bucket list videos as they start to unfold, and it inspires them to take some action. You're really going all out with not only accomplishing it, but then videoing it and telling people the story and having them hopefully be inspired by following your story with your newsletter and with the videos on YouTube. So first step to the formula, write it down. What's the second step in your mind about how people can get things that are on their list? Here we are at the beginning of a year, like I said, in the New Year's resolutions. Hopefully people are setting goals. So what's your formula? What's step one? We wrote it down. Now what's step two in your mind of how people can get things done?
I think it's to put a little bit of action every single day towards that goal. And if you aggregate that over the long term, I think you can accomplish some amazing things. We surprise ourselves with what we can accomplish if we just do a little bit every single day to work on those goals. So for instance, right now I'm training for the 5-minute mile, sub 5 minutes, which has been a goal for me for 20 years. And I'm running like a 5:50 right now. When I was in 8th grade, I ran a 5:37, and I still have the record over at the Marsh Junior High School here in town. But I'm trying to beat this. So I'm running almost every day to get used to that and to train to get there. And when I cross the finish line, I know that's going to be the best feeling in the world.
Wow. You can't fake that.
Nope.
That's not something you can wing. And you better not wait, because the older you get, the harder that's going to be. I think you're at a pretty prime age right now. How old are you?
27 tomorrow.
This pretty prime tomorrow. Well, happy birthday tomorrow. You. So pretty, you got to get busy on that. So we're writing it down. We're doing a little toward those goals every day. What's the next thing to help us get those list items, whether it's a bucket list or a week list, accomplished?
Ask for the help of those around you. My wife, she is so helpful and so supportive in all of these things. And I couldn't do it without her backing me and saying, get out there, do your bucket list. I support you fully. The other thing would be to ask experts for help. So each one of these items that I've got on my list, most of them have like an expert, someone who's really good at that thing that I can just sit down with, ask him questions, and then listen and learn. So today I'm meeting with a master photographer. He's going to teach me how to do film photography, which is one of the things on my list. When I come to the public speak to 1,000 people, I'm going to come knocking on your door, because how do I public speak to 1,000 people? How do I prepare for that? And that's something that Lain Hensley knows how to do.
Yeah. Well, let's, without further ado, let's go to your list. Just plow right through the list, and hopefully people will be inspired to stop this podcast right now and make a short list, and then now I've made the list, start doing things every day. So what's on your list?
Yeah, you all 30?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Century ride, ride in a motorcycle sidecar, sing a song at an open mic night, do beekeeping, go ice fishing, watch a chicken hatch from an egg, train through the Canadian Rockies, video games on a movie theater screen, slackline over a river, watch The Shining in the Stanley Hotel, drive a car in Europe, write a book, public speak to 1,000 people, run a mile in under 5 minutes, visit Rome, swim across a lake, hike Half Dome, ride a hot air balloon, build a porch swing, homebrew beer, shoot and develop film photography, visit Alaska, snowshoe Crater Lake, polar plunge, scuba dive, go 2 weeks without any screens. That's no technology, no phone, anything. Run a marathon, work in agricultural harvest, see the northern lights, and photography from a helicopter.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Good list. Happy to say I probably have about 10 of those already done. So that makes me feel good. But I didn't video them and tell the story.
Yeah.
But, I think it's so important for everybody, because we know life is super busy. We know every day we wake up, we can come up with a million excuses to not make progress on those things. And the harshest quote I heard was, losers make excuses, winners make progress. And how do we make progress on our list, on our bucket list? And first thing, for sure, pick those. I think as our listeners, if they feel like I did it all somewhere, like, okay, cool, I can do that, riding a sidecar. That's awesome. But I've never done that. I would kind of like to do that. Like, you're planting seeds. I think, and what you said about, getting the support of the people around you. Your wife is, of course, going to make some sacrifices to make that happen. Kids make a sacrifice. So having a sense of why is this important to you? Why would you say this is important to you? And, there's a quote, if you have a strong enough why, you'll figure out how. And I think some people, when they're making their list, whatever that is, they're not stopping and going, why is this important to me? And am I willing to make the sacrifice needed, or ask the people around me to sacrifice needed so I can accomplish this? So why did you start this thing? Why did you light the fire this year?
I think some of my work as a youth pastor in the past comes to mind here, where I would prepare messages to share with the teenagers on a weekly basis, and hopefully changing the way that they think about things, the way that they see the world, so as to continue in the process of self-development. So that's something that I'm really passionate about, is self-development. And so I think the bucket list is less about pleasure, and it's more about development, pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, doing things that you've never done before. Because when you complete those items, when I cross the finish line after the sub 5 minute mile, there's a sense of accomplishment that I can't wait to cross the finish line. And I know that I will, and it probably a few months out still. But I think it's all about pushing yourself to do the things that you never thought were possible, but they are.
Wow. I've been trying to land a flip on a wakeboard for about 12 years. And this year I'm like, I think I'm going to sell the boat. And I told my daughter the other day, I'm like, I don't think the flip's going to happen. It's pretty, almost a tragic feeling, because for some reason it's not happening. I've landed every attempt, but on my head and on my back and I've always landed, but never ridden away. I've had friends who I've tried to do it with, and they've since landed it. So I think, one of the things about setting a lofty goal is not only giving it every ounce of energy you have, but also just being at peace with the amount of effort. And not to say you're not going to run a 5, but it's the qualities that you'll have to exhibit on your journey to that 5 minute mile that I think is the ultimate reward. Not only, but for sure, you got locked in on that emotion of how you're going to feel when you accomplish that task. I like the way you spoke about it. Like when it's like, well, if I'm able to, it's like, I think that's a next formula or next piece, is to have a sense of certainty that it's not over until I give up. And, as you're picking these goals, so now we've written them down, we're taking action, we're enrolling the help of experts and our support people around us. What's the next step in your formula so that people can accomplish those goals?
Radical curiosity about the subject that you're looking at. There's so much to learn, and there's so many good conversations to be had. You just have to ask good questions of people who know what they're doing. And so to have a radical curiosity about, I don't know, how the public speaking process is, or how to scuba dive. I know nothing about scuba diving. Film photography, my in-laws gifted me with this film photography camera. I know nothing about film because I was born in the late 90s and we didn't have...
I didn't know what you meant by, because of course, that's what I grew up using. I get 24 on my roll, and I hope that came out okay.
Yeah, it's like I grew up in the digital world, and I want to embrace the history and the tradition of some of these things. And so I think a radical curiosity is just a great way to approach life. Because if you have a conversation with someone and you assume they're an expert at something that you know nothing about, I think that you can have some great conversations in life. Yeah,
well, like I said, a radical curiosity, and some of these things are just life patterns. And I think setting a bucket list or setting some sort of measurable to go, what kind of person am I? Do I make lists and then not accomplish those things? Do I make lists and then make excuses about why I'm not accomplishing these things? Or do I make a list and I go setting myself in the environment where I can, pursue those goals that I have. I think one thing for me is that, so often like a week passes by and somebody be like, what did you do last week? And you're like, I can't even, remember. And then when you set something like that, and I know you did the snowshoe of Crater Lake, and it just kind of like all of a sudden it happened. And I'm sure you're like, I did it. That's a week I'm going to remember. And I think part of what we're going for here is to inspire people to go first, to create notable occurrence, create a memory for last week, create a mile marker. When you're running a marathon, you just run. And then you see a mile marker, you're like, I'm at mile 17. It's like even though it's just another step in the journey, it gives you a sense of accomplishment. And I think these are like mile markers in your ability to make progress.
I think there's something we said too about these barriers that we create for ourselves, and we put ourselves in these boxes of limitations. We say, oh, no, I could never do that. I could never make that happen. And I look to the example of Roger Bannister. He was the first one to run the sub 4 minute mile. He ran like a 3 minutes, 59 seconds, 0.4. And before that, everyone thought it was physically impossible.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as he crossed the finish line, more people did that.
Yeah.
It's like he showed, no, this is not impossible. A human can run this fast. And I think to date, there's been thousands of athletes who have done that. The other one that, going for in the theme of going first is Fosbury with the high jump. I was a high jumper in high school. So I relate to the story, but he shows up at the Olympic trials and he's jumping over the bar backwards and kicking up his heels. And the Fosbury flop is what it's affectionately called. Well, people laughed at him at the trials, the Olympic trials. Well, he wins the Olympics that year. 4 years later, the Summer Olympics, everyone's doing the Fosbury flop.
Yeah.
I mean, these people went first and they're showing an example. It's totally possible. And by going first, they have shown to other people that, yeah, I think I can do that too. My hope is that people watch my videos and they say, if that guy can do it, then I think I can do it too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's a real gift. Like people who, and it's scary to put your story out there and say, I'm going to accomplish something. I think that's got to be a part of that formula when you're enrolling help, is to have the courage to tell people, I'm going to accomplish these tasks. I think life, teaches us sometimes to just keep lowering the bar until we're sure we can accomplish things, because then we're not judged harshly by the people around us. And that's a scary thing. It's a scary thing to say, hey, I am going to do this. And then tell people and then enroll their support. And then, like you say, like have this radical curiosity about what would it take for me to be able to, what can I learn about this? And you're just exercising that part of your mind that is looking for adventure, looking for some new pathway. And once you get the resources into place, like what's that sort of, is there any other step to your formula as you're, creating your bucket list and then going about getting it done?
I think in addition to those steps, it's just wanting to know that I hopefully by sharing the story am encouraging others to follow suit. That there are so many great things to experience in life that why wait and continue to put in the work, do it now. So maybe that's the final tip is take action right now. Whatever you're doing right now, write down your bucket list or start working towards it, or pick up the phone and make a call and say, hey, I've always wanted to go on this trip to wherever, and do something immediately right now.
Gosh, I remember in college, I had a couple of friends, friend Rand and Wade, and we were like, we didn't have a lot of money, and we're like, hey, let's go to Utah. I've always wanted to snow ski in Utah. We're like, let's put our money together. And we scrapped our money together, put like gas money in one envelope, and this will be our food and this is our lodging, and we got in the car, and that's like 30 years ago, and I'm still really good friends with these guys, and like we knocked something off of our list that at that time seemed like totally undoable. And as much as I travel with my work, I'll go to a place, I'm in Florida, I'll say, oh, where are you from? I'll say California. Oh, I've always wanted to go there. And they're like, oh, I've wanted to go there my whole life, and this person is 30 or 40 or 50 years old, and I'm like, well, my ticket was only $275. Like, it's not that far. But, life happens in these little chunks, not in some massive thing. But there are these little hurdles. And I think some people just make up in their mind that it's so much harder than it is to start getting these things done. Have you realized that it's maybe easier or harder, or what's the wisdom that you can pass along to people about when you're getting these things done?
Yeah, I think it's a muscle to develop. There's this clinical psychologist, Dr. Jordan Peterson, and he's been in the news a lot, and he wrote a book, and I read his book, and really his whole message is about self-development as well. One of his adages is like, clean your room. He says, as soon as you clean your room, you realize that you can affect change on the world. And then you start scaling that, and you start cleaning your house, and then you start cleaning your town. And when we develop that within ourselves, I think that we can realize I can do so much more than I ever thought I could. And so I think that it's like the muscle that gets built there. But you've got to start. So my whole tagline with the thing is, if you don't know where to begin, just start. Because some action's better than no action.
A friend of mine said, inch by inch, life's a cinch, yard by yard, it's hard. And really just embracing this like little bit of progress. I love, there's a great speech I've seen many times on YouTube around where he says, if you want to change the world, start by making your bed. And he gives all this rationale. If you haven't seen it before, really look that up. Say, you want to change the world, start by making your bed. And I'm sure it will come right up, because it's just simple, cutting edge of common sense stuff that people can put into practice. And I like what you said about developing this muscle, because we know we are reflexive beings. We are born with this sort of genetic profile to have like either this kind of personality or that. But then life teaches us these lessons. And from that kindergartner that raises their hand and says, I want to be a fire truck. And the first thing is like, that's impossible. We start going, wow, what's possible? How much of my imagination can I use? How big is my world? And if we leave it to chance, I think our world will get smaller. And smaller and smaller and smaller, until maybe somebody's listening to this and says, that's not good enough. I don't like the trajectory of what's happening to me or what's happening in my life. And if I continue to leave this to chance, I could end up at the end of life kicking the bucket and look back and have regret and have real sadness about what you haven't accomplished. And I like what you're saying about really just, doing little things that are getting you closer to those. What's next on the list? Like, what are you working on right now? You said you have a couple you're working on. What's the next one?
So still training for the sub 5 minute mile. Today I'm meeting with someone who's a master photographer and I bought film online. Of course, Amazon's got everything. So got to do some film photography. And I'm looking to do the, let's see what else is next. Yeah. I mean, the polar bear swims in the books. You were there.
I did that. I swim maybe 25 years ago with those guys, Rand and Wade, and did it again with my daughter this year. She, I knew you were doing it, but she woke up and she's like, I want to do this. She's 20 years old. And I'm like, of course, I'm going to go with you. And it was epic. Like we're here in Chico, California. The polar bear swim is about maybe, 40 or 50 yards across a natural part of our stream that's blocked up. And it's cold. Like it's a January 1st activity. But which one of these things scares you the most? Which one do you think gets your heart pumping the most when you put it on the list?
The public speaking. I think for a lot of people that is a fear. And I enjoy speaking, but there's just this sense of anxiety before you get up there in front of people. So I'm looking forward to hearing your wisdom on that when I get to that one. Public speaking, singing a song at an open mic night, love music, but when it's in a small setting that, I'm scared to do that one. And then the marathon, it's like, who wants to run for that long?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a torturous experience for sure. One thing I used to always tell people, you want to scare yourself, do karaoke without alcohol. So often people numb the way they feel in the midst of scary things. And it's a muscle you can exercise. And that's part of the key to doing that 2,000 person speech is like, when you feel alive, when you're feeling scared, your body's reminding you that you're doing something outside of your comfort zone. And just finding peace in the midst of that internal struggle where our ego and our subconscious is trying to control our environment and create a predictable outcome. And at the same time, some of those reflexes undermine our ability to perform, and they undermine our ability to even create a list and make steps toward that. It's the same thing, only extended over longer amounts of time.
Now, I've got to ask because we're here, but you spoke at my graduation ceremony at Chico State. Now, right before you were to come up to speak, was your heart just racing and you were nervous, or were you totally calm?
I'm human. And that's, I think, one of the things about this list is that, and for everybody, so often we look around life and we think, oh, they've got it figured out. They've got it figured out. They're calm. Well, look at their life. And we all have this little voice in our head. We all have the same sense of like, I hope they like me. I hope they like it. And I think we just get to a point where we start, looking at the statistical odds and go, odds are good. I'm not going to screw up that bad. I'm not going to trip and fall off the stage. Even if I mess up. And in the speaking thing, of course, I was terrified. I graduated from Chico State. I had a really strong pull of like why I wanted to deliver that message, a huge kind of milestone in my life to be asked to do a commencement speech. And then at some point you just got to wave your brain goodbye and trust who you are and just say, I'm going to speak from the bones of my like existence. And people want connection, not perfection. You know, people connect to your story when they're watching that. They don't care if the angle of the camera or he stumbled through a word, but this is a sincere person that's trying to accomplish things in your life and inspire us to accomplish things in our lives. And I can't think of any better example of somebody going first to make things happen and lead with that example. So yeah, I was terrified, and I hope you are too.
I'm terrified.
Enjoy that. Like if you're out there and you're not scared today, you're not taking on something that's like getting your heart pounding or getting you out of bed and cleaning your room and just has you going, I just want less and less of the feelings that life offers. You're no doubt moving away from that full satisfied existence. And that's a tragedy.
It's so much easier just to sit and watch Netflix or whatever and in the evenings rather than reading personal development, do something that's on your bucket list, put in the work. And I mean, that's a fulfilling life for me.
I'm so glad you brought that up because Netflix, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, boom, boom, boom. This generation, which I love, and I'm bringing up 3 of them and calling them my own kids, you know, they have a million distractions that are right at their fingertips and a million paths of least resistance where they can just observe life and not participate in it. I think everybody has this hunger to like accomplish and experience and you know, hey, I've conquered something. And guess what? You can get that on Fortnite. I can play this game and we can win and and I'm just my thumbs and I'm in my own room with my headphones on. And as I watch my son in that, I'm thinking, man, could be a problem. It can definitely move people away from stepping into the full experience of real life. And I don't know good or bad, right or wrong, but it's definitely a thing to figure out.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's part of my discovery process with the 2 weeks, no screens. You know, you mentioned things that you're scared of. This summer, we're looking at hiking Half Dome. Have you hiked Half Dome?
Yep, I have. It's awesome.
We're thinking instead of going up the backside of it, we're going to rock climb part of it. I called a friend of mine. He's got all the equipment. We do what's called trad climbing. So you place your own gear. So it's an 8-pitch climb and then a hike up to the top of Half Dome. And for me, summiting Half Dome, I mean, I'm looking forward to that, to say that being on the top right there is so much better than anything in the digital space of like getting likes or comments or any of that. I mean, to do something and to accomplish it in that regard, on that big of a scale, I just can't wait to summit that.
That's a route I have not taken. Of course, people have seen Free Solo and, you know, and, you know, it gets our heart pounding to see stuff like that and to think I could do that. Anybody listening right now, if you want to go to Paris, look online, you can get a ticket there for $500 round trip and just go for 2 days and find an Airbnb and these things. Hey, I need $1,200 or I need $1,500 and just start. Like you said, like there's no better time than now. It's never going to be perfect, but just start. And I hope that people, when they're hearing this, they'll stop this and go, I'm going to write down 5 things that are on my 1-year list or my bucket list or life will just pass you by.
Yep. We stare at the blank canvas and we're terrified, but as soon as you make one little mark, that artwork is yours and you can turn it into something amazing. So if you don't know where to begin, start.
Yeah. I think giving yourself permission to fail, giving yourself permission to try is an exercise in just like, I'm okay with being myself. I'm okay with putting myself out there. And, you know, the You Go First platform is designed to help people say, I'm willing to go first, to believe in myself and to believe I can get one of these things done. And you're just a perfect example to have here. And I hope people will follow you on, all they have to do is search bucket list on YouTube and enter Jason Weinrich. And we'll put some links on this so that people can follow your story and see as you're checking these things off. And hopefully they're going to comment and go, hey, I heard you on the podcast. I saw it. I wrote one thing down and I got this thing done. Like the formula works.
Totally.
That would be so rewarding for me. I mean, I would love that. If you're out there listening to this, hey, comment back and put like, here's one thing on my bucket list. I would love to get a collection of the listeners' bucket list items, even if everybody just put down one and we could start seeing each other's hopes and dreams and what we want to accomplish. You know, and my title is Head Dream Chaser. So for me, a bucket list item is a dream with a deadline. and you're putting that deadline out there and you're pursuing it. So I really appreciate you coming and telling the story today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lain.
Yeah, so hey, on behalf of all of us at You Go First and with Jason, it's a pleasure to just be your friend and watch you go about accomplishing this. And I hope that people will follow your story, and I hope they'll go first to create their list, put it somewhere where they see it, and tell people about it, and use the formula you shared with us today. So thanks for doing that, Jason.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, cool. So everybody out there, you go first. Look for times to do that, and go first. Create a bucket list before it's too late. Honestly, the time is now.
Thanks for listening to another episode of You Go First. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you want to listen to another episode, you can find us at yougofirst.live, or you can see more about our host, Lain Hensley, on his Instagram at One Dream Chaser. To learn more about his company, Odyssey Teams Inc., go to odysseyteams.com or follow all their social media channels at Odyssey Teams. Thanks again, and we hope that you will go first to share our podcast with a friend or colleague. Now, you go first.